You are falling behind in Valorant. With its 2-year anniversary approaching fast, the average skill level in Valorant has never been higher. Here's everything you need to understand about Split so you don't fall behind the curve. How many times have you lost free defense side rounds just because your team doesn't understand the map? Use these tips to make sure you can secure defense side rounds on Split in the new act. First, let's talk about A site. The first thing you need to understand is that most attacking teams are going to put all of their resources in mid, leaving A main and B main very weak. Take advantage of this by poking in for information at the early part of the rounds. Use the information that you gain from this to tell your teammates what you think is going on. If you poke in and you see nothing at A, you could even go for a flank. If the attackers choose to go A, the key point of control for them is ramp, so it's your job to hold ramp control. This is because without ramp control, it's extremely difficult for the attackers to play post plant at A. And if you hold this part of the site, it'll increase your team's odds of a retake exponentially. The reason for this is because A site has almost no crossfire potential. It's very hard for attackers to set up a strong post plant position that they can defend the site from. If you choose to play on the site in an attempt to hold, make sure you take advantage of the small choke point leading into the main site. Make sure you use things like Fade Contain, Raise Nade, and Killjoy Molly to capitalize on the small choke point. Now let's move over to mid. Like most other maps, on Split, middle is the most important piece of map control. With mid control, attackers will have the option to take either site. So in ranked, it's very important that we maintain mid control or at least make it extremely expensive for them to take. What this means is that as defenders, we want the attackers to have to use lots of utility to take mid. Because it's such a strong position, we want them to have as little utility as possible once they're in position to execute on a site. This is why agents like Sage, Raze, and Viper are so valuable to have on Split. They have tools like Slow Orb, Nade, and Molly, which all make small choke points leading up to mid very dangerous. When holding as a defender, chances are you're going to get pushed off of mid. When we have to fall back from mid, we want to play a crossfire like this one in B Heaven. This will allow a Rafter player whose job it is to swing off of the stairs player's contact while also being able to help the B site player. Now let's talk about B site. Like A site, you can expect attackers to not just keep an individual outside of B main. Usually they're just taking it or doing nothing at all with it, especially in low rank. So it's viable to contest this area early and take the space. Sentinel agents can use their utility to secure deep passive information and then leave to go play another spot on the map. If the attackers try to take B through the main choke point, you can simply have your Heaven players pivot over and util dump them while they're running out. While this is happening, the site player can be in any number of spots to defend against the execute. Now, let's talk about attack. You think this side is way harder than it actually is. Let me explain why. The chokes on either of the mains are extremely deadly to go through, which leaves a lot of low ranked players stumped on what to do. The solution to this problem is running splits. First, let's talk about mid. The first piece of a standard mid control is a smoke and vent. This will prevent any defenders from peeking down mid and helping their teammates in mail. Next, we have a couple options. You can use utility that will visually clear out mid like a Skydog, utility that will flush out mid like a Raise Nade or a Breach Aftershock, or you can use an ability like a Breach Stun to enable your teammates to run up mid and clear angles themselves. Once you've used this utility to clear top mid, you can either choose to go into mail or into vent. Now that you understand the most important part of the map, mid, let's talk about how to split the individual bomb sites. To split A, you need Heaven control, and this can be done two different ways. The first way is just going from A main up the ramp and then into Heaven. The second way is by going from mid to vent to rope and then into A Heaven. Once you have Heaven control, you should funnel at least one player out of Heaven down to site and 2 players through the main choke point. You should leave at least 1 player in Heaven to maintain the map control and play post plant. This leaves our 5th player to do whatever our teammates do in ranked lobbies. You should plant the bomb in one of 2 spots. The first spot is planting for Heaven. This is the most ideal plant spot, but if it's too dangerous, you can plant for the Rafter or lower ramp swing. Now that we have the bomb down, it's time to play post plant. To play post plant on A site, we want a maximum of 3 people on the bomb site and at least 1 on ramp or Heaven. For the site guys, they can play in any of these spots. As an attacker playing post plant, you should focus on holding Heaven control, because playing site is very difficult on a retake. So far, we've talked about mid control and A site. Now let's talk about B. After getting mid control like we talked about, you should scale into mailroom and then into B Heaven. To split B site, All of your teammates except one person should be down taking the site, so you should have about 2 going through B heaven and 2 going through main. The last player should stay around heaven or mailroom to contest the space and delay the retake. Once you have site, you should almost always plant the bomb here. If your heaven player is still alive, this should be easy. If the heaven player dies, then it's dangerous, but you should still try to plant here. On the post plant, there's quite a few great crossfires you can play and lots of sneaky spots to catch defenders on the retake. Ideally, at least one person will play B main as insurance to play the bomb time. And that's it. That's how you play Split in Valorant in the year 2022. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe. Leave any questions you might have in the comments.